Hey Chargers, now we're going to look at evaluating our functions when we have multiple functions to look at. So it's the exact same thing that we were doing yesterday. The only difference is we have to make sure that we're looking at the correct function. If you look at the top of your notes page, you have 4 different functions here. You have the f of x function, g of x function, h of x function, and then this j of x function is the graph. Okay, so we need to make sure that when we're looking at these, that we look at the correct function for when we're working our problem out. So our first one here, we have find h of 4. So that means I'm going to be using this h function, and I'm going to plug in 4 for my x. So h of 4 is going to be equal to 4 over 2 plus 5. And when I divide and add on that, I get h of 4 is equal to 2 plus 5, which is 7. So the same steps we're doing yesterday, you just have to make sure that you're using the right equation. Our next one that we have here is find f of negative 4. So that means I'm going to use this f function right here. So f of x is equal to 2. Sorry, we're not going to do x, we're going to do negative 4. Because we're plugging in negative 4 for the x value, minus 1. So that gives us 2 times negative 4 is negative 8 minus 1, which equals negative 9. And again, remember, if you feel more comfortable, you can always change that function notation on the left side of the equal sign to a y. Just so long as you're using the correct function, it's okay if you use a y. So now my next one I'm going to look at is find j of 4. So that means I'm using the j function. I'm using this graph over here. So I need to look to find which point has an x value of 4, and I want to know what my y value is right there. So I'm going to look at where x is 4, and on the graph it's right here. And our y value right there at that point is 0. So j of 4 is equal to 0. Our next equation, we're going to be looking at our g function. It says find g of negative 2. So that means I'm looking at this g function up here, which is 2 plus 2 parentheses 4 minus x. So I'm going to plug that in. G of negative 2 is equal to 2 plus 2 times 4 minus negative 2. Okay, remember, you need to make sure that whatever is inside this parentheses right here is what you plug in for that x value. Okay, that minus sign in front of the x value does not have anything to do with what you're plugging in. It's just saying that you're subtracting all of the x value. So you're subtracting all of negative 2. So that makes this g of negative 2, or if you want to change that side to y, go for it, is equal to 2 plus 2 times 4 plus 2. Because when you have minus a negative, that becomes a plus. So that gives us, I'm going to move this up over here since I don't have much room. G of negative 2 is equal to 2 plus 2 times 4 plus 2 is 6. That gives us 2 plus 12, which is 14. So g of negative 2 is equal to 14. So if we were to graph this function right here, which we'll be learning how to do that in the next few weeks, but when we graph that function there, we will find that we have a point where x is negative 2, y is 14. So there's a point on that graph that has that coordinate. And that's what we're doing. I'm giving you x values, you're finding the y values that correspond. So if this were on a graph, like our function j, then there would be a point there with that x and y coordinates. Okay, let's look at this last one here. This is a fun one. So we have f of 3 plus j of 0. So we have two things that we're doing here. We're looking at two different functions. We're looking at our f function, and we're looking at our j function. Oops, didn't change color. J function. Okay, so our f function is 2x minus 1. So I'm going to rewrite these for us. That's not working for me. Okay, there we go. Equals 2x minus 1. And our j function is the graph. Let's start with our f function first. So we have f of 3. So I'm going to plug in a 3 for my x value. Again, on the left side here, if you want to change that to y, go for it. So f of 3 is equal to 6 minus 1, which is 5. So I'm going to take this 5, since I know that f of 3 is equal to 5, I'm going to take this 5 and plug it in right there where I have f of 3 written. So instead of saying f of 3 plus j of 0, I'm going to write 5 plus j of 0. Now I need to figure out what j of 0 is. So for j of 0, I'm going to look back up at that graph. And now I'm looking at where I have an x value of 0, and I want to know what my y value is there. So x value of 0 is this point right here. And when I have an x value of 0, my y value is positive 2. So j of 0 is going to be positive 2. So that means that this is asking me to do 5 plus 2, which just equals 7. Okay, so we're looking at two different functions. We're analyzing each piece of this addition problem from each different function. I found out what f of 3 was equal to. I found out what j of 0 was equal to. I added those two numbers together. So the main key on this is you need to make sure that you're looking at the correct function. And if you notice, I color-coded these. I highlighted them different colors. Okay, and I used those colors when I was working the problems. I find that that helps me. And I will sometimes go through and highlight them or underline them a different color, or if I just have a pencil, I may box one in and circle one, or or underline it twice, however I want to mark it. And then I'll go through and make sure that I mark my problems first, so I remember where I'm going to look.